Hey, Roadrunners, welcome back. Let's have a quick discussion. We are now 25% of the way through the 2022 season. It's time to grade the Roadrunners. I did this last year, and I did it each game, talked about what the highs and lows were, the three takeaways, and I kind of changed from that as the season went on because the way the Roadrunners just kept excelling, kept advancing, right? Well, now is a good time to let's talk about what do we see. We've got a little bit more of a base. So I'm going to grade things on a, typical college grade, right? A through F, right? So let's go on the opposite side of the ball. Let's just start frankly with Frank as our quarterback. I don't think I'm saying anything earth-shattering. That's an A. He's been an A. He got out of a lot of trouble for us against Houston, got a lot of trouble for us, Army, a lot of trouble for us against Texas. Now, we're currently 1-2. Lost a heartbreaker, played tough against Texas. Won a heartbreaker. What do you want to say? However you want to put it, right? Won a close one against Army, and he played great both games. I don't even have to look at his stats, and I want to say it's probably identical, right? He's just that guy. He's going to throw for 200 and maybe 50 yards. He's going to run for another 50 yards. It's going to look underwhelming when you look at it in a stat sheet, unless you see him on the field and see the times that he does it. So give him an A. Let's go with our running backs. How do you feel about the running backs? You've heard me comment that we don't have RB1. And what I mean by that is, it is absolutely no slight on Brendan Brady. Love having him back. Great kid. I've talked to him a couple times. So it's not that I'm running him down, right? I was happy that he's getting time to run the ball. I felt like he needed to carry the ball a little bit more last year. Same thing with B.J. Daniels, right? Treylon has had some flashes, but I don't think he's provided necessarily the spark that maybe the coaching staff was expecting yet. Maybe he's getting his feet wet, probably a different offense, right? And he's at a point to where, how do I read what I'm supposed to do? So, I'm going to give him a B. I'm going to give that group a B. I could go lower if I wanted to just be a total ignore the other reasons why they're not really putting up big numbers. Now, Brendan had a great game. They didn't look like it, but he had a really good game against Texas. Let's go with the offensive line. Now, this is going to be controversial. Our offensive line is going to be controversial. And I'm going to go, and it's going to be a weird way I say it. So if you were to look at the effort, you were to look at what you see on the field, you would see, well, they're not pushing anybody around, right? Like they started doing late last year. But then I have to say, well, would I give them a D, right? And I can't, right? So I'm vacillating between a C and a B. And part of what's kind of leading me towards a B is how many injuries the team's had and how this team is, this unit is gelled, right? But can I go that high? Because if they were all healthy and they performed like this, they were all our number one starters, and they performed like this, what would you give them? I think you give them a C, right? So it's kind of one of those things. So I'm going to say maybe B minus. I'm going to give them a B minus. I think that's fair. Let's talk about tight ends. I mean, what else can you say? They when they go out and pass pattern, they're always open. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing how well they play when they go out and pass pattern. So I'm gonna give them a B also. I don't think they've done enough. Yeah, it could be one of those things. I don't think they've been impactful enough. But a B sounds good. It really does. Let's talk about wide receivers. This has got to be the most annoying group to grade. If you've if you've listened to any of my videos, you know how high I am on those three kids, right? And there's Clark. He's just rock solid. You heard him talk about Zachary Franklin, Coach Harris. He dropped the ball, surest handed kid he's ever coached. He'd call that play again 3 more times in that game. Even if he dropped that one, wouldn't change from it if he saw the setup, right? And you've heard me talk how great for him. And here's what's funny about this group. If I were to look at their output, it's probably very similar to last year. Here's the difference, though. We're not seeing those miraculous great plays that are happening like they had to save games for us last year, right? They're a little bit more methodical about this. And I think that's kind of skews it, because you could say they're an A. You could easily say they're a C. You could, as a core, as a group. But, I'm going to go with a B+. I am. I love those guys. They hustle. You saw Zachary High Point that double pass over. They were there. Texas was there. He went up and got it, right? Then he's dropped passes. Clark's dropped passes, right? I mean, but Clark made a great catch for a touchdown in overtime at Army. That's what's so perplexing about these kids. They'll get it squared away. What'll happen is they'll get into a groove. They'll just finally, they'll probably stop thinking as hard about it, stop worrying so much about it, right? They feel a little tight to me. They don't feel as loose like they were last year. So I think their grade will probably go up as the year goes on. Now let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to have to give the defensive line, as hard as I see them play, they're on the C+ side. We're not getting the push that we could get last year on opposing defensive lines, not on a regular basis. I could go B-, but I'm really thinking like C+ is probably, they've got a lot of things to clear up. They're getting, offsides, whatnot, right? And the Army game might have taken something out of them against Texas. Now, granted, they're playing Texas, probably a much bigger offensive line, I think, than our defensive line, and vice versa, right? Their defensive line compared to our offensive line. So they have a lot of technique going in favor of them. But I'm still going to kind of, I know how hard they work. I sit right there by them. Love those guys. Cheer them on, coach them up, yell them up. You know what I mean? Hey, guys, you're doing great. Yeah, keep going. Rah! Right? I do that. And I'll never stop. If you sit in section 110 and you see me, you'll know I'm always talking them up, right? I'm getting them rah rah ree sis boom bee, whatever that phrase is. And let's go with the linebackers. It's kind of weird. And it's going to kind of go into the defensive backs. They're not a liability anywhere. So far, they haven't been. So that means to me, they don't feel like they're going to be a liability when we get into Conference USA play. But they haven't really gotten home very often. We saw Clark get his turnover. We've seen kids get some sacks, but there are times they could have gotten home sooner, and last year would have, right? Now maybe it's because the quarterbacks we've played. Clayton Tune. I was going to say Al Tune. Different player, different era, different position. But Clayton Tune is mobile, so maybe that affected it. They didn't get home with the QB at Army, but that's their offense. When they had a chance, and they did have quite a few of them, they missed. I'm not going to say it. Tackles were broken. That wouldn't have been broken in last year, right? So that's what I'm saying. I think a B for them. It feels good. Now, as far as defensive secondary, how do I rate them? We haven't been beaten over the top yet. Well, hold on. Let me take that back. They had a terrible game, and it's all about the defensive scheme running, coaching against the wishbone, the triple option, that they got caught sneaking to the backfield. But they cleaned that up. So I don't know. B-. It could have been a B+ had we not been talking about the Army game. So what do I give the whole team? There's a part of me, there's the heart in me. There's a, I wear orange colored glasses, right? And I've got a pair. I need to wear them in one of my videos. You'll get a kick out of them. That I want to give them an A. But I always say you never ignore in victory what you wouldn't ignore in defeat. And that's also vice versa. So I can't give the overall team any kind of A, right? You've seen the grades. I just think a solid B is how this team's playing. And let's see what they do when it comes to Texas Southern. That's going to matter. Now, I want to pivot. Now, I want you guys to talk. Comment, like and subscribe, yada, yada, yada. You hear people ask. I'm not going to ask that often. But when you comment in below, tell me what you think. Pick one core and tell me where I'm wrong. Or tell me where you agree with me. I don't care. This is about us just having a fun conversation. And if I disagree, I'll be like, that's okay. We both love the Roadrunners, right? That's what matters. And we're going to be in the Alamo Dome. Now, let me change subjects real quick. So everyone knows when that linebacker got the free shot on Frank, it was like, oh, it's a bad call. Oh, it's a bad call. They were crying. I mean, I know there was almost a fight in the area I was at. It was kind of funny because none of us Roadrunners were like, yeah, that's what you get for playing dirty. We just all were like, unfortunately, that's the rules. And it's literally the rules. The face mask is part of the helmet, and it's helmet-to-helmet contact on a defenseless quarterback. Unfortunately, that's the rules. Now, I understand that there's an appeal process to where he might be ejected for the game, penalty be called, and then he might be able to find his way back on the field next week if NCAA and the Rules Committee deem, that wasn't really targeting, but it was, so we're going to let him back in, right? So I think that as we've seen this mold a little bit, and tell me what you think. I have a feeling at the end of this year, maybe next year, once a lot of the egregious hits are being taken out of the game, right? There's still some happening. Once they feel like his egregious hits taken out of the game, maybe they put in a rule to where, look, he kept his head up. Yes, it was helmet to helmet, but his face mask hit, right? But he didn't pronate his neck. He didn't bring his head down. He just grabbed, and it just happened to be more of an incidental contact. I think that we're going to see a rule to where they put in language, was it forcible contact to the head or neck area? Yes. Was it intentional? Like you see it, like, did he launch? Did he lower or hit with the crown? You've heard those rules, right? Now, is there an exception? There was forcible now, but was his head up? Did it just happen to be face mask and it just looked worse than it did when we see it on replay? Yes, he was defenseless. Yes, he had a free shot. But how else do you want him to tackle? Right? So the way to look at this is, and a lot of people say, well, the NFL would have not called that and yada, yada, yada. And I've always commented when I see comments like that, I said, well, the NFL's put millions upon millions aside for concussion protocol and concussion injuries and long-term CTE, right? That's part of being in the NFL, right? So you're understanding the risks that you're taking. You're also going to be protected by the NFL when you get older. Well, protected is losing your mind, right? But they're going to be able to take care of you. NCAA, no matter what anyone says, NCAA doesn't make that money. That money goes right to the schools. NCAA uses the money to create the playoffs, create the bowl games, whatever, the national championship, but it goes right to the teams. So who's going to come up with the hundreds of millions of dollars it's going to take for players? Because remember, in the NFL, there are 32 teams, 53 players, or there might be 54 players now. That's it in any season, plus practice players, 6 players. In Division I alone, FBS level alone, there's 120 teams, and every one of them have, at a minimum, 85 players on their roster. How are you going to afford that? That's why the NCAA is so strict on the rule. And people need to understand that. Now, I personally see them writing some language, and frankly, I think they've done a great job removing the egregious hits. Yes, we've had some called against us that I totally didn't agree with. But you know what? We haven't had any this year that I remember. And more importantly, there's fewer and fewer and fewer in the game of college football. Those type of hits that happen, right? Just tell me what you think. Anyway, Roadrunners, is a little conversation right there, and it's a nice little how did I grade the Roadrunners. Tell me how you grade the Roadrunners. Tell me what you think about the targeting rules in college football. Look, I get it. Oh, we played like this back in the day. Yeah, and you know what? Also got punched on the football field and nobody did anything about it back in the day. Think about that. Is that what you want us to go back to? Let's remove the face mask, go to leather helmets, and let's go and let's have people dying on the football field every year. Yeah, nobody wants that, right? So this isn't about pansies or whatever. These kids are bigger, stronger, faster on both sides of the ball, and they're colliding with a lot more force. Remember, force equals mass times acceleration. Two 220-pound guys, full speed, something's going to happen. Anyway, birds up.